Filozof ve psikolog olan Stefano Serafini, Uluslararası Biyo-şehircilik Topluluğu'nun araştırma yöneticiliğini yapıyor. Kendisi bugün bizimle Biyo-şehircilik adlı sunumunu paylaşacak. Sahneye davet ediyoruz.
Oh, I start well. So, I'm happy to be here. And that's me, Maidanos. In Italy, we say that some person is parsley when it fits when it shouldn't. And, you know, I'm a philosopher, so usually I speak about design from a different perspective. And the perspective is that of people. That's my opinion, at least. That, of course, design is part of a system. The system is mostly political and economical. And that's the situation. We have a manhole in a way, this is an iron grill. Then you got the market, and in between you got the people. As a philosopher and psychologist, I study especially the effect of design on human health. So, while designers are partying and making fancy and nice things, and hopefully they sell, people face a problem, the problem of the city, how they live. Especially from a psychological point of view, people are feeling bad in cities. Especially some part of the city that has been built in a certain way that follows a trend that starts in the 20s of the last century. One of these very important topics is loneliness. People cannot talk. Our cities are breaking social connections. And this affects not only psychology, but also your physical health. I really love this quotation by this quote by Richard Jackson. He's a doctor working like me with urbanists. And he says, tell me where you live, and I will say, how long are you going to live? Because, for example, in the United States, one of the most important health problems is about obesity. Well, when an obese person goes to a doctor, the doctor says to him, okay, you have to move a bit, make some sport, don't use the car possibly, and don't eat, you know, rubbish. And what happens? Nothing. Because people live in places like this, suburbia, they cannot but use their car to commute and go to work, and they spend a lot of time there, and when they come back home, they are exhausted. And all they can do is going down and take some rubbish food from the street. This is all they have. And especially for kids, that's a problem, because after they come back from school, the only thing they can do, because they don't have public space around, it's watching TV or playing with the computer. So on the other side, we have designers who are making beautiful things like this, exciting design. This exciting design is affecting your neurological system in a way. So think of the image up there. Of course, it's very funny, it's very exciting, but what's the reaction of your brain about that? You get catecholamine released in your brain. Now, this is an extreme example, but you have a lot of kind of that, for example, in restaurants or even in private apartments. Lack of biophilia. What is biophilia? Biophilia is the human tendency to go towards alive things and special physical structure that we find in nature. So this is how normal people usually look at designers, like fancy people having good time. But this is probably how architects and designers see themselves. For example, this building has been built a few years ago in Moscow for Naomi Campbell, I guess. This is the European Parliament. No comments. And this is a tweet that they really loved about the Shard. It says, okay, Saruman finally taking up residence at the Shard. So what's the problem here with this kind of design? Abstraction. I love the presentation of the station in Holland. It was talking about using wood, a material that gives people a feeling that is not abstract, that connect them to the environment. This is good design. When you get scale disconnection, especially from the human body, from the context, from nature, and then lack of biophilia or neuroergonomics. Neuroergonomics is a discipline that studies the effect of the form of space on your neurological system. So, abstraction. There are a lot of designs here. Please confess it. You love abstraction. This is lust, you know? Especially, you know, it's very fashion for architects to wear in black. You know this guy here? He likes to wear in black. The point is about aesthetics. when we talk about aesthetics, what do we mean? This term comes from Greek. In Greek, aesthetics comes from aesthesis, and means sensation. So if you were talking about aesthetics to an ancient Roman or an ancient Greek, they couldn't understand what you mean. So the term aesthetics has been used for the first time in the modern sense by Alexander Baumgarten in 1735. But he is just the father of modern aesthetic. His grandfather is Galileo Galilei. Why? Because Galileo Galilei defined two kinds of qualities of bodies. The first one, the primary qualities, like everything that is measurable, they gives you the possibility to control reality with science. All the other characteristics of reality belonging to the secondary qualities like color, taste, smell cannot be controlled by science because they are relative to a subjectivity. So how can you control that? With aesthetics. To give you an example, let's say that we go to Bali and we see a beautiful Balinese dance. We know anything about the Balinese culture, so we don't understand the anthropological, religious meaning of this dance, but we can say, oh, this is beautiful. So we can make a package of that and sell it as a beautiful thing, in the sense that we can really sell it, we can market it, we can make tourism of that. Tourism is typically, it's a contemporary phenomenon. The second point is disconnection. Nico Salinger spoke about that in several books. One of that is about skyscrapers. So typically skyscrapers is a symbol of power. You mustn't be a psychoanalyst to make an analysis of the shape of this stuff, but also it has a brutal scale, disconnection with the ground floor where people live. So it's disconnected from life in a way. It's emitting a message of overwhelming power. And of course, it's not sustainable, whatever people say. This belongs to a kind of economical systems based on oil. We have fuel, we can produce a lot of energy, and we can sustain stuff like this. The third point is lack of biophilia or neuroergonomics. Of course, you cannot say that everything comes from designers, but designers have a responsibility because what they do become an example for other people. Richard Louv found that if you don't allow children to get in a natural environment, or at least an environment that reproduces some natural forms, they cannot get sociable. And we are making a study with the Society of Biourbanism and the University of Northern Italy about the effect that children that are not exposed to natural environment before the 6 years of age, they don't form neural connection to become more empathetic with people. So green's not the solution, unfortunately. This is what I see very often. You make something very unsustainable per se, and you put trees on that. This is not the way. Or this is what we think is nature, for example, a lawn. But the lawn lacks all the characteristics that make nature keen to the humans. Then we think about sustainability usually in a term that shrink everything to energy. So we save energy to keep going on the same direction that is the wrong direction because it's destroying our world. What is sustainable for? Think to kids. We have this experience in southern Italy. There are regions in the south that have been filled up with this stuff that are saving energy but are destroying the psyche of people. And then sustainable show. You know, this idea of putting, for example, a decorative wind turbine to say that you are sustainable. This comes from an artist, a friend of mine in Israel. And this is just a crack in his wall. It's poor, actually. And he transformed that. It's not by chance, because he's following a scalar process that is experienced by fractals. You get fractals everywhere in nature and in the building environment that we have built for millennia all over the culture. These are fractals. This is a city where I live now. There are cracks, and these cracks follow a pattern. They are patterns that are self-designed. They follow some physical laws, and you find the same physical laws of forms, even in built environment. This comes from the United States. This is mud, and this is the town I living in. This is Artena. Now, check the modern part of the city and the ancient one. You see a very big difference in fractality. We can measure that, and we can measure the effect that it has on neurophysiology, how you feel. This is the modern part of the city. they built this, even if you have a natural environment here. The difference is really huge for your sensitivity. But life strikes back. So with time, things change. You get a kind of self-design made by life. You are life, we are life. And design very often doesn't work, but people find their way. Another important thing, just 1 minute to finish. Another important law has been discovered by this guy working at the Duke University, Adrian Bejan. He talked about constructal law. You get flows, and these flows produce design, produce pattern. You get a new way of approaching biological sciences, talking about self-organization and complexity. You get biophilic design. And this is the really, really important things. What does produce a nature-like design? Connecting to reality. Because features are the emergent products of underlying processes. Professor Bessim Hakim just released this book 2 months ago about Mediterranean urbanism. This is the fruit of 40 years of study about the codes that are underlying the Mediterranean cities. You got these beautiful small towns all over the Mediterranean basin, and they follow the same pattern belonging to the 6th century. This is a social-generative design, a design that allows people to get connected. We have no time to discuss about that. But the point is that we have to be coherent to an underlying order. Beauty and function are just the effect of that. Okay, this is pretty radical. Biourbanism is about putting together bios, life, and polis, politics, power. So it's a kind of short circuit between power and life. So you want to have places like this, but rather like this. This is some works. This has been made by Marco Casagrande in Taiwan with illegal workers because they were needing a place for themselves. He just learned from them how to build this stuff. He's introducing himself into places that are abandoned, like the places that have been presented before, making holes to make nature enter inside the building. This has been taken in, this picture has been taken in your city, actually. I found it beautiful. This is real Mediterranean Biourbanism. This is just people self-designing it. So we're working also about finding these rules in all the Mediterranean basin with Bessim Hakim. This is our stuff. And this is Paracity, a model that we are building in Asia with the Society of Biourbanism, and we are bringing this model to Rome. That's it. Thank you.
Teşekkürler.